So we're going to be looking at a scenario where civilization starts over. In the last episode, we saw the continuation of World War VI, or the War of Worlds. And in the last episode, we saw the terrible event of the Asian Union collapsing to all of the rebellions around it, including Indonesia, India, Turkey, and Uzbekistan, as well as two major meteorite strikes happening, sinking parts of Africa, South America, and all of the oceanic islands besides like these ones off the coast and just Papua. Also, I do want to say, if this map looks different than it did from the last episode, it is because it didn't save, so I had to redraw all of this. But anyways, if you guys are enjoying this series, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's go ahead and get into this episode. So in Europe, there are only two countries fighting, and that is the Scandinavian Union and Russia. But the problem is, Sweden just got a landing made, or at least these Swedish areas, and we see the rebellion pushing up the coastline of the southern Swedish area, along where these, like a lot of populated areas are, for the Scandinavian Union. And while that's happening up here, we see major pushbacks into this big Russian front finally happening. Russia is exhausted, and there's nothing much they can do, as we see them push up into these areas, reconnecting up with Latvia, as they once again push into Latvia, taking it like that. They retake all of the northern Bulgar areas, which leads to the whole front collapsing. And eventually, Russia is kicked fully out of Europe. And now, they really don't have any more gains besides Crimea and Turkey. But they have recently fully been kicked out of Turkey as well. And now, just like the Russians did quite a few years ago, I'd say around 3 years ago, the rebellion has started pretty much the biggest offensive that they have done yet in this war. Moving into the Russian country, they cut off Estonia from the rest of Russia, leading it to collapse. And with this, some of the troops over here decide to split off and go into the Scandinavian Union, moving into the Finnish parts and capturing Helsinki, as well as capturing all of this lake right here. The North Americans continue to push into Mexico, fully kicking them out of the Mexican area, as well as making a landing inside of Cuba, pushing throughout the whole thing, and eventually recapturing Cuba and the Bahamas. And it is right here where we see the Lime team and the Green team both join up, and pressure is on Quebec to join, but Quebec, or the White team, has been known as being distant from like the actual North American part. They're more Japanese related because of that whole Renaissance thing. But we do see Greenland joining up, which is pretty good. But North America really is the only place where the rebellion is not doing very well, as all of Yucatan falls over to the North American Union. The rest of southern Brazil secedes over, and with Brazil very weak, we see massive pushes up into the Peruvian area, taking pretty much all of it. They then start to move up and connect up with the Panama, or like the Central American Rebellion. The Central American Rebellion gives all of Panama over to them, just that way they can move troops up and defend up against the North Americans. But it is actually way too late for this rebellion, as it all falls to the North Americans, as they start a push down into Panama, taking over the capital city. The South American Union is pretty much cooked, as their capital is taken and all of South America is overran. The first continent to be fully taken has just been taken. And now the African Union is being pushed back, as well as Kenya. In fact, Kenya has no more money. Kenya cannot afford to fight this anymore, as we just see major losses. Their capital city gets taken, and now a new frontier is opened up inside of Africa. The African Union is wondering why Kenya is so weak, but they are pretty much facing the same thing, major invasions, and it feels like this whole rebellion has just been buffed up, because they are not being stopped by anything. Somalia falls. And yet again, running out of colors, we see the invasion of Sudan taking place. Sudan is far past their prime. They are a weak country at this point. A good economy, but there's no way they're going to be able to stand up to this African rebellion. Especially Jesus. With Egypt, they're kind of crippled. World War V kind of spent all of their money, so they are just being pushed into right here. This panhandle they have right here gets taken. And Egypt, one of the strongest countries in the world, their capital is taken by the Turkish, and the African front is collapsing very quickly without the help of the Asian Union. Arabia is pushed back, and a full-scale invasion happens with the Kuwait capital being taken. Moving down into the central Arabian parts, they move up, taking the capital of Qatar, but the UAE is able to hold on from here. But from here, Yemen is invaded, and all of the old Omani states are just invaded and they're gone. Now with starting invasions into Libya, definitely now the strongest country out of these three, and with major pushbacks in West Africa, pretty much losing all of Iberia. Not going good in the African front at all. As Scandinavia loses their Swedish capital, they are collapsing very quickly. This rebellion moves up, taking over all of the Baltic Sea, and then soon the Norwegian capital is taken, marking the end of the Scandinavian Union over here. But Iceland is still a thing, and they choose to join up with North America, and now it's just no longer just a North American Union. And now there's a new front to invade into the Russian Union. An invasion into Crimea sees Crimea getting taken, as the Russians are kicked out of Caucasia, and now a full invasion from Caucasia happens. Russia is collapsing very quickly. And with the Uzbekistans invading throughout their whole border with the Russians, Russia is cooked as the capital of the Russian team is taken. There is no more fighting inside of the Eurasian theater. And with Indonesia moving a lot of their troops down into the Australian theater, Australia really has no hope as the emus are no longer fighting back. They kind of just are eating their crops now. We see Australia just crippling down into these little areas they have left until eventually their capital is overran and another power is lost. So now it is really just North America and Africa fighting along with UAE, at least used to be UAE. And with the capturing of the Libyan capital, as well as multiple meteorites landing inside of the African Union, they are even more crippled than they once were, which allows their capital to be taken. And yes, this happened quickly. All of Afro-Eurasia is taken. And just letting you know, it was supposed to happen quickly. Now, there's one country left in the world, being the North American Union. But here is the main strike of the meteorites. Massive strikes hit the ocean and waters around it, hits the land. A meteorite about the size of all of Asia hits Earth. This meteorite will be marked by this big red dot. This was the size of the main meteorite. And if you could tell, the meteorite that absolutely murdered the dinosaurs was about the size of the meteorites that hit Earth just in the last episode. And then this comes, and you're dead. The sun is blocked, it gets very cold. A lot of animals and plants begin to die off. That includes pretty much all the humans on Earth. I also forgot to say there's 2 countries left, I guess. But you can't just count Quebec. Then January 22nd, 2201, yet another meteorite, almost the full size of this one over here, hits North America. Most humans in the world are dead, and these aliens begin to feed. It starts with the ones down in South America, as they just begin to eat away the land. Earth is turning into an abyss, as these things are just being devoured. All over these invaded areas, they just begin to get devoured, just gone, wiped out like they never existed. And there's nothing no one can do because these are really the only things alive on Earth. The ocean isn't even safe. Eventually, Oceania is just not a thing anymore. And these things have crossed over and now are starting to eat away the Pacific. Earth is dying. And that is going to do it for this episode. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure to like and subscribe, as there are 2 more episodes of this series. And one more thing. The North American Union, before this big meteorite hit, launched one rocket off into space. And that rocket was heading for the moon.